So now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce today's first speaker, Kaylee Hunsaker, Senior Account Manager with Ipsos's Channel Performance team. Kaylee, you have the floor.
Hello, everybody. So excited to be here today and to share our research with you. My name is Kaylee Hunsaker again, Senior Account Manager at Ipsos. I've been with Ipsos for over 5 years, working mainly in the tech and telecom space, based in Seattle. However, I've been in the e-commerce space and doing e-commerce research for the past 3 years, and specifically with the syndicated work, been doing that for almost 2 years now. This was a brainchild of Carlos and I, and we're so excited to continue to share our results, share how things have changed, and what might be coming in a potentially post-pandemic world. Carlos, over to you.
Thanks, Kaylee. I have been with Ipsos almost 9 years. And have been doing retail research, including e-commerce, for a bulk of that, plus some time before that. So yeah, like Kaylee said, we're excited about walking through this with you. So I'm going to kick off with telling you a little bit about what we're going to cover today. And we're going to start with kind of walking you through the changes in consumer behavior, perceptions, expectations that we've seen for the past 9 months. We're also going to share some mystery shopping data that ranks retailer performance when it comes to e-commerce, and then talk about what this all means for retailers moving forward. The long and short of it, I think, is that there tends to be a difference that we're seeing in how consumers choose you initially as a brand from which to do pickup or delivery, and how they judge your performance once they've actually chosen you. And there's four themes that we're going to talk through today that keep popping up. Those being inventory, purchase or pickup fees, delivery fees, and order minimums, communication, and contactless handoffs. So starting off with consumer behavior. So when we started assessing consumer behavior and e-commerce in the spring of 2020, like really paying attention to this in the context of this study, I think we all know we were seeing historical increases and historical growth in the use of pickup and delivery because we were stuck at home, most of us. When we first kicked off this particular syndicated study in August, September of last year, we started with a consumer survey, and in August, we saw that not quite 3/4 and a little bit over 1/3 of consumers had used pickup or delivery in the past, I believe this was past 90 days. And when we reran that same study in May, we didn't see a whole lot of decline. Even though the economy is open, even though there's the ability of people to go back into the physical shopping, they're still shopping online. They're still doing curbside pickup, in-store pickup, and home delivery. And what we've actually seen, this being the two charts on the right, is that there continues to be growth in this sector. And I think the way I would summarize that is that, between this and other research we're seeing, consumers seem to want a hybrid economy, right? They want the ability to shop online and go into the store at their convenience, and they want retailers to just make that happen for them. Kaylee, any thoughts?
Yeah, actually, from another study Ipsos has done, we're seeing that 79% of people want the option to shop in person, right? The world is opening back up. We like that. We want to be going out and doing things. However, 35% of them want more delivery, and 45% reported they actually want more pickup. So to your point, I think people are going to continue this hybrid theory. We adapted, within the last year of doing pickup and delivery, but we also want to go back in store if we have that option. So I think people are deciding what routine they want as things continue to open up.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Kaylee, did you want to, I think you were going to
Yeah.
talk about this one a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. Let me kick this off. Yeah. So back in August of 2020, as you can see on the left-hand side of this slide, people were right inside COVID, and they really wanted pickup and delivery options because they wanted them to be convenient. They were really focused on health and safety. So these are the top 5 reasons people chose e-commerce retailers back in August of 2020. And as you can see, it is about safety and convenience. Moving forward now, in May of 2021, you can see things are shifting a little bit. Consumers still want things to be convenient and safe. However, there's some new reasons why people are picking e-commerce retailers, specifically pickup fees and inventory. Most of them know how e-commerce works now. A lot of retailers are offering e-commerce options, and consumers are obviously still doing them. So there's a couple of different things that we're seeing now that may become differentiators or reasons that people pick your retailer over others, which is new. It's new in 2021.
Yeah, and I think what I would add to that is I don't think we're saying that these are that a pickup fee or a lack of inventory is a deal breaker, but it's definitely something that consumers are paying a lot more attention to. They are cognizant of it. They are thinking about it. And, you kind of see it from the reasons that a customer will stop their order. They might discontinue an order if they find that, items are out of stock or you're charging pickup fees or have order minimums. They might not. There's a lot of reasons not to discontinue an order, right? Loyalty, good pricing, convenience, etc.
Exactly.
But it's definitely something that we weren't seeing 9 months ago, and we're seeing it now. So I think what Kaylee and I landed on was, okay, maybe not make or break, but pay attention to it. Think about it. So I'm going to reiterate. These are the 4 things I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. So inventory and pickup fees or order minimums. These are really 2 attributes that are starting to become more, consumers are starting to become more discriminating about who they end up purchasing from. And these attributes, which didn't factor in 9 months ago, are starting to factor in. On the other hand, what keeps a customer coming back is all about communication and contact lists. Now, I'm not going to, actually, I should probably walk that back. It's not all about that, but these are 2 of the consistent themes that we're seeing. You still have to deliver, right? You still have to do a good job of giving somebody what they ordered and all that, but that's pretty fundamental. So moving on. So now we are at the section where we are going to talk to you a little bit about the program overall, why we did it, what we did, and so on. So as Kaylee alluded to earlier, we started talking about this before COVID. 2018, 2019, we were talking about doing e-commerce syndicated work. And we felt that there was a really critical need to understand not only consumer expectations, which we had a lot of data about, but also how retailers were actually performing in the moment. And so what we started with was a survey, right? And it was a survey of consumers, what they thought, what they felt. And we paired that with a driver's analysis to understand the factors that would keep consumers coming back to retailers. Then in September of last year, again in December, and then most recently in June, we did actual mystery shopping. So we sent several thousand mystery shoppers out to different retailers and had them actually place an order. In this case, in the most recent wave, place an order online for pickup and go and pick up the order. And what the mystery shoppers were doing was reporting on how the retailer performed, and they used pretty objective measures. We wanted to make sure that we understood things like order accuracy, the time it took to place the order, the time it took to pick up the order, all the way from beginning to end, and then a little bit after the fact. But we wanted to make sure we understood it from a very objective point of view. So the specific performance measures we're sharing with you today are all about grocery and food and beverage. Those are the two industries we measured in this most recent wave of mystery shopping. But the principles, the attributes that we're measuring, they apply across the board. It does not matter who you are as a retailer, who you are as a brand, or what industry you play in.
Yeah, correct. We're seeing that these principles apply to retail, tech, telecom, across the board. As you've mentioned, Carlos, we've done this over several months with several different retailers that we've looked at, and we've seen consistently the same drivers pop up.
Yep. Okay, so I mentioned grocery, food and beverage. These are the brands we measured this most recent time with mystery shopping, 14 grocery, 12 restaurants. And for grocery, we did a mix of regional and national brands. For food and beverage, we mostly stuck with the national brands, and we split it between kind of fast casual or quick service and fast food. We wanted a good representation of each. And then to quickly summarize, these are the pickup attributes. From all of the research that we've done, these are the 18 pickup attributes that we selected that we measured in the mystery shopping that drive a shopper's likelihood to shop that retailer again using pickup. And so as you'll see, it goes from the beginning to the end, right? So all the way from account creation and creating the order to the back end of how was the order, how was the pickup executed, and health and safety measures. And I mentioned this before, communication, contactless handoffs are the strongest predictors of shopping the retailer again. They're not the only predictors, but they're pretty high up there. Kaylee, over to you.
Yeah, so here are our grocery brands. So we're going to look at our top 3 grocery winners this wave. Overall, you'll see the top left, 82 is the average grocery score. Anything over 75 is fantastic in terms of performance. Most of the grocery brands performed very well. In past waves, we've noticed that the national brands have tended to do well or better sometimes than the regional brands. And interestingly enough, this wave, we're seeing those regional brands begin to compete and perform really well along with the national brands. Not necessarily better, but better in some ways. And I think our hypothesis here is that, again, 9 months ago, 12 months ago, your national brands had e-commerce options already available. They had things in place. They had systems in place, apps. All of those systems were mostly worked out, or there were just little kinks they had to work out. And regional brands some of them had to hurry up and get with it because of COVID. So we're now seeing that even regional brands have that under control. People want to go to their local grocery store if that's more convenient for them. And as long as, they're delivering and communication is great and contactless is happening, people really enjoy that experience. So that's what we're seeing. We're not necessarily saying people are going to stop shopping national brands or stop shopping regional brands. It's just an interesting observation that as things have continued throughout this year, that we're seeing regional brands continue to do well with the national brands.
Yeah, and to sort of to reinforce that, Target, Walmart, Whole Foods are not doing a bad job. They're doing a good job. But the difference is that HEB, Publix, and Aldi are doing a stellar job and have moved up a little bit. HEB and Aldi were doing pretty good in September when we measured this before as well. Yeah. Aldi is new to this particular wave. Mm-hmm. The other thing I just wanted to reinforce, right? The reason that these brands are winning. You see a few differences, but the consistent themes are they get the order right. You place an order for 20 items, you get 20 items. And they are communicating at every step of the ordering process. They confirm that you placed an order. They let you know that they're shopping. They let you know that the order is ready for pickup. They tell you how to pick up. And in a lot of cases, they also send you a follow-up email or a follow-up text. How did we do? The other thing that a couple of these brands have that is better than others is the ability to schedule a specific pickup date or time. With Target in particular, that's mixed. Target tends to just tell you when it will be ready, whereas with H-E-B, Aldi, and a lot of other grocery brands, you can pick an hour slot for a pickup. And likewise, you can do the same for delivery. And then for H-E-B and Aldi, you're also seeing, that the items are they're in stock, and that's important, as we've mentioned previously, to consumers. Kaylee, before we move on, anything else you wanted to add on this particular slide?
No, you covered it. Really,
Awesome.
the key is ease and communication.
Yep. All right, food and beverage.
I'll jump into F&B. Okay, so again, here are top performers for the food and beverage space. As you can see from the table, things are a little bit different at what the retailers are doing well. And as probably a big observation here is there is nothing regarding communication in this particular table. We saw this consistently across the food and beverage industry. Communication was lacking in terms of communicating with customers about when food was ready and some other things that, Carlos, if we want to dive into, we can. However, interestingly, a lot of the top three brands you see here are fast casual quick service. And we think that often this is because customers like the idea that they can spend some more time customizing their orders. These are places where people have to choose options and, again, customize and can pick all the things, and then they can place their order. And so that was just an interesting observation this wave for food and bev that we wanted to just kind of throw out there. However, brands need to communicate when an order is ready in some way, or at least give a time estimate so that customers know I should be here at this time and my food will be ready. Carlos, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, and I think we talked about this and have been talking about it for a while. The quick summary is when consumers are placing an order, this applies specifically to restaurants, but it's true across the board. They don't want to show up and have to wait. They want to walk in or, go curbside, and the order gets brought out immediately. And that's really critical. And that's where that communication piece comes in, right? If the store sends you an email or a text and says your order is ready, you expect, okay, I'm going to show up and it'll come out to my car, or I'll walk in and grab it off a shelf pretty quick. That's the level where consumers are at right now. They don't have a whole lot of patience anymore for brands trying to figure out how do we get this out to the curb and what do we do. The other thing, we talked about this yesterday, Kaylee, and love to know your thoughts on it too. But yeah. I think we recognize that there is a big difference in staffing and the business model between, say, grocery stores, other retailers, and restaurants, these kinds of restaurants specifically. And sending order ready notifications and things like that is a challenge. If you're busy making sandwiches or making burritos, and do you really have time to, for the 10 orders you got in the last 15 minutes, do you really have time to send them a message and say, hey, it's ready, come get it? Or do you just rely on the fact that the app says it'll be ready at, 15 minutes after you place the order, and you count on the customer not showing up early?
Yeah, it is. Definitely. It's an interesting conundrum. I think that, again, the biggest piece is that since we're now in this space and customers are doing this, to your point, Carlos, the biggest thing is they just don't want to have to wait.
Yeah.
They do an order online. So in my experience, I've actually appreciated when even restaurants have been like, hey, your order will be ready in 20, 25 minutes, even if it's ready in 10. I know there's some mixed reviews about, oh, but the food is not warm enough. But in my opinion, I love that I can walk in, grab it, and go. That's the biggest thing for me as a consumer. So I think that even if, again, when you send, okay, yeah, we confirm, we got your order, it should be ready. You don't even have to give a specific time. You can say in 15 minutes or in some way that I know that when I get there, my order will be ready and there for me. It's important.
Yep. And I know we both do this, right? Like we'll time a coffee order for, hey, when will we get off the bus or when will we arrive? And, we're trying to time it so that it's not sitting there for too long. But people do that all the time. So.
Yeah. And it just builds for me like trust, right? In the brand and in even that specific location. Like I know that when they say my order will be ready in 15 minutes. So again, when I order next time, I go, okay, yeah, like I know my order will be ready in the time frame they tell me. It's important.
Okay, so let's get into kind of the future of e-commerce, and these are just trends and things that we've seen, we've talked about over the last 2 years at this point. But starting with inventory, Kaylee, just love to get your thoughts on, what does the increased importance of inventory mean for brands?
Yeah, and I think this is a big topic specifically as we head into back to school holiday season for 2021 and 2022. We're now at a place where, as I can't say this enough, again, consumers are using this, they're used to it now. They really do want you to have your logistics in line. I think there was a lot of grace given at the beginning of the pandemic, and there was also inventory shortages that were national news. We were aware of those as consumers. So there was a lot of things that I think people were willing to give grace on or okay with substitutions, and that was okay. Now that we're moving back into a more normal and open economy, some of that grace is going away from consumers, and they really do expect that when you say you have an item in stock, that it is in stock. Specifically, I think we really saw this with pickup, because often pickup, you are choosing a specific location, either through app or website, however you're ordering online. And when an item says it's available and I select that item, I do expect that item is available as a consumer. I would expect that it would be filtered, or it would say it's out of stock or something. It is, and I think it's a little obnoxious for consumers. I think it is. And so it may be an unreasonable expectation, but I think that's where we're at now. Again, it wasn't probably like that even 3 to 4 months ago, but we're there, and I think we're going to move forward in that direction as well. I think the other important piece of this, what we saw too from consumers, and you guys can actually see on the right-hand side some of the verbatims we pulled out from our mystery shopping customers, was that people actually are willing to deal with substitutions to a certain level. And I think people who use this have become accustomed to that in some way. However, they don't want to deal with the impact of substitutions, specifically around cost. If it impacts order minimums or fees, or if the substituted item is much more expensive than the original item they put in their cart. So I think it's more about the impact of the substitution, not the actual substituting itself. Carlos, I don't know if you have any other additional thoughts.
Yeah, and I think the one comment I'll make on substitutions is that they are unique to grocery. Nobody else can get away with substitutions, right? But grocery can. There are alternatives to whatever it is you ordered. For everybody else, and even for grocery, I think what we have seen from consumers, what we have seen from our own research, is that there are a few brands that are recognized as sort of best in class when it comes to this. Telling you what's physically available in a store, those being, Amazon being an online retailer mostly, but Home Depot, Lowe's, Best Buy, I think all do a pretty good job of telling you how many of a specific item are available at the store you've selected. And that is, it is becoming, if it's not already there, it is becoming the level of detail that consumers are expecting. They don't want to show up at a store and have you say, sorry, we thought it was here. It's not here. Drive someplace else to grab it. Yeah. And I think with that being said, we recognize that not everybody can invest in the logistical chain that Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, Best Buys can. That's, it is a huge investment. It is a lot of work. We're happy to work with anybody to kind of identify the specific, the brand specific solution, because it's different across the board. What works for Best Buy doesn't work for Subway and doesn't work for Safeway or Albertsons. So I think that's just an important caveat to inventory.
Yes.
So moving into pickup fees, and this one, it caught us a little bit off guard, seeing how important pickup fees are seeming to be, all things considered. And it's tricky. I think what we are seeing is this element of the hybrid economy where consumers just want things available for them when they want them through the channel that they want. And when I say it's tricky, it's not the notion of charging for delivery, charging for a pickup, having order minimums that's the issue. It's the fact that there are retailers that don't charge this, and they are out there, and consumers are beginning to discriminate on this, right? So if there are 3 grocery retailers within a mile radius, they might pick the one that doesn't charge for pickup, or doesn't have an order minimum. We talked about this a lot, Kaylee, and there are a whole lot of other reasons that somebody picks a brand. But I think our conclusion was kind of pay attention to this one, because this one it's tricky.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we definitely talked about was the Amazons, Walmarts of the world. We're seeing people pay for memberships, which is a little bit different than a pickup fee or an order minimum, but that people are willing to pay for those as long as the guarantee is there. So, right, I know I pay for Amazon Prime because I know that 99.9% of the time my delivery will come in 2 days. That's the guarantee. And I think that's it's an interesting model, kind of the same way that you were talking about the hybrid model. Consumers want what they want, how they want it, when they want it. I think they're willing to pay, but it might have to look differently in the future. We've seen they're willing to pay. The minimums are okay sometimes, depending on what you're buying, depending on the retailer, and membership fees are okay as well, as long as the guarantee is there. So it is an interesting. It's a tricky thing. And again, this is the same thing you were talking about last time, Carlos. It's not a one size fits all model. Every retailer is going to have something that works for them. So, but it's just an interesting observation.
Yeah. And I think the notion that we knocked around a little bit and we didn't land on a conclusion was, what if Aldi or Giant, as part of their membership or their rewards program, offers free pickups? right? They
Yeah.
charge otherwise, but it's free if you're a member.
Right.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. It's complicated. So,
Yeah.
okay, communication. So, Kaylee, before you jump in, I'm just gonna say this super bluntly. Um, I have yet to see an example or a case where a retailer over communicated with a shopper, with a consumer about an order.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I put it even more bluntly, you cannot over communicate. It is not possible to over communicate with shoppers. They expect push notifications. They expect them to come on messaging, on email, in the app. If you have an iPhone, notifications pop up, things like that. But again, they want those various steps that we've mentioned before. Confirm my order, tell me you're getting it ready, tell me that the order's ready, give me accurate, clear, easy to understand pickup instructions, and then the follow up is a kind of a nice to have. But those first 4 or 5 are absolutely critical, and I don't think I can beat that horse dead enough. It is really important that you over communicate when it comes to an e-commerce order.
Yeah. And Carlos, actually, before I jump in, we had a question about communication. What types of communication are important? You just hit on a couple of them. But before I jump in, do you have any other thoughts specifically about what important, either the types of communication or anything else that you haven't mentioned yet that we've seen is really important that we want to reiterate here?
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I think the only other thing that I would call out is when you have Instacart shipped a personal shopper, right, doing your shopping for you, and they're asking you questions and they're asking you, hey, this brand is not available. Here are your 3 choices. And again, there is no binary answer. I find it a little bit obnoxious. Somebody's asking me question after question after question, but I know my wife thinks it's great. She gets to pick exactly what she wants, and she gets to control every step of the process. So that's probably the other piece is if things aren't available, giving consumers the option to pick their solution and to figure out what they want to do. It's not necessarily a bad idea.
Yeah, and I think, again, we saw this pop up to, in any way, communicating what impact that substitution might have is also very important to consumers. Interestingly, we saw, now that you brought that up with a personal shopper, or even if, specifically for grocery, it was a shopper, the store was fulfilling the pickup order. We saw that people really didn't like that they were expected to communicate right away. We saw a couple of verbatims where people said, I didn't text back within 10 minutes and they just said my order was ready and substituted something for me. So I think there's a fine balance. It's a fine line. I don't have a solution for that. I'd love to actually dig into that further in the future if we have the opportunity to do that, because I think that's a very interesting point of the shopper or the store tried to communicate and didn't get a response from the customer, and that pissed them off. So anyway, that's an interesting point. But yes, overall, giving them those options, giving them the chance to pick, the chance for a solution, because I think that's what people do naturally in store, right? If their brand is out, they'll pick something else. We deal with that kind of cognitive dissonance all the time.
Yep.
So yeah, giving them that choice and that solution.
Yeah. I think I'd like to know a little bit more about what you think about that over communication piece. Are there types of communications that shoppers don't want?
Oh, goodness. Yes, we saw this. People, I think in terms of the pickup or delivery, right, like Carlos mentioned, they love every step. They love to know where their order is. That's very important when they pick up. But oh my goodness, they really don't like when all of a sudden they're opted into all the email offers and that weekly stuff. That just drives customers and consumers crazy. So I think that's the fine line. I think that's where I think when we've heard a lot of complaints either from retailers or consumers about over communication, I think that's the specific thing we're talking about. We're really talking about communicating through the process, making sure they know what is happening when they can pick up at their convenience, those things. But they don't want, unfortunately, they don't want your weekly offer or your coupon or something, that stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, they don't want to be opted into that. So
Yeah.
unless they opt themselves in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing that we have been seeing, and this affects, I think, restaurant and in previous studies, convenience stores and smaller retailers more than big box, Target, Walmarts of the world, and grocery is a lot of places will offer a pickup method. Be it curbside, in-store, drive-through. They'll offer multiples on the app or on the website, but then when you get to the physical store, there really is just one. And it was interesting reading some of the comments of people who said, I ordered curbside, I picked curbside, but then when I got there was a sign that said, "Come into the store." Well, then why did you give me that option? I think that's a communication challenge that everybody has, or you get to the store and you can't quite figure out, where do I park, or all the stalls are taken. I think the one that we've all probably experienced is you're told to call the store and you call and nobody picks up. Well, at that point, you're just going in, you're not waiting curbside. So there are all these communication challenges. Even the retailers that do it really well aren't perfect. They all have challenges.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out, we got another question about specifically the percentages around did not receive a notification when order was ready. I think that's a kind of a tricky way we word it, but essentially if you flip it, we're saying that 89-90% of our mystery shoppers said for grocery, they did receive a notification when order was ready. And so again, if you flip it for food and bev, 30% said that they did. So what we're essentially saying is grocery is over-indexing here. They're doing a great job. They're like, we're walking them through. They say when the order is ready, super important. And unfortunately, the food and beverage industry, probably for logistical reasons and many, many other things that we don't have insight into that we'd love to dig into with you, is not communicating that. So I hope that clears that question up. If you have a further question about it, please ask another question. But
yeah, complete anecdote. My wife and I did an order from Best Buy about just before Christmas time, and she thought she'd placed it for curbside. It turns out she'd placed it for in-store. So we went to a curbside spot, parked, and then couldn't figure out what to do next. And thankfully, one of the employees came out and helped us. But I mean, it was her first time doing it, and I think that's that's what you get into. Is you get into situations where consumers think they're doing one thing, but they're actually doing something else, and then they get frustrated, which is less than ideal.
Yeah.
All right, Kaylee, why don't you finish out with contactless?
Okay, contactless is another interesting one that we continue to see pop up. We did not actually expect this at this point. Again, economy is opening. I think in general, consumers are happy to go back in store. We're all happy to be out eating in restaurants again and things like that. So this was very interesting that this continued to be a driver for customers. And we think that it'll continue, actually, especially through 2021, because as long as we hear COVID variants, kind of those key words in the news, I think this is going to continue to be a thing. We know that the CDC no longer recommends this. They no longer say that this is necessarily a thing retailers need to do, and contactless sometimes may not even be the safest or healthiest choice. However, consumers still see it as the retailer putting in the effort to continue to help them stay safe and healthy. And that is still, as we see, at the top of consumers' minds. So I think that we're I think we may, even as we head into the winter months and holiday, maybe see an uptick potentially in concern about health and safety, especially because flu season, other things kind of tend to pop up in those winter months. So what we really want to reiterate here is we think that contactless is more of a perception and not necessarily because they want you to continue it because it's like this amazing, great thing, or it keeps them really safe. It's their perception is that you are putting in the effort to continue to help them stay safe and healthy.
You're doing it. The consumer, doesn't have to.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree. I agree completely. I think, there are way better ways of keeping people healthy and safe, but this is a very visible and super easy way for a brand to get some brownie points, is to just do a contactless handoff. If it's food, put it on the tray. If it's groceries, you put it in the trunk. If it's something else, again, you put it in the trunk. And, I think maybe the quick way I would summarize that is, default to contactless, but leave it up to the consumer. If they want you to hand it to them, cool, hand it to them. But default to contactless would probably be my advice.
And I know too, Carlos, we've talked a lot about this of even in our health and safety work that we've done the past year, we've seen consumers give retailers brownie points for those visual things that they see that they perceive as keeping them healthy and safe. And so contactless is part of that, and I think will continue to be important throughout this year. And they're going to give you brownie points for the visible piece of that.
Yeah, there's so many studies we've done over the last 18 months where, a brand is doing everything correct as far as cleaning and wiping things down, but it's out of sight, out of mind, and they're frustrated. Why are consumers not perceiving us as being concerned about their health and safety? It's out of sight, out of mind. It's not correct. It's not accurate, but it is perception. So.
Yeah, and interestingly too, I'll just add this anecdote of health and safety. Sometimes specifically around pickup rates, sometimes the only interaction they have with you is that 1 to 2 minutes of, your employees putting something in their car for them or handing them something directly. So that might be the only interaction they see that you are doing something to keep them healthy and safe. So it's important.
I think that's a great point. So just to reiterate as we close, and then we'll take a look at some questions. I think inventory was going to continue to be a differentiator. The brands that have things in stock are going to have an advantage over the ones that are struggling. I think be mindful of fees and order minimums. Just keep in mind that consumers are starting to be mindful of it. So you should probably be so as well. And then when it comes to executing, you cannot over communicate sufficiently. You cannot communicate enough. It is the number one predictor of a return client. Among all those 18 attributes, this is number one. And then lastly, health and safety, still important. Probably too early to discontinue your visible health and safety efforts, even if it's got an element of theater. It wouldn't hurt. So I'll close it here. If you have any interest in learning more about this, love to chat with you. Shoot me a note here. My email will be sharing this deck with you. And Kaylee, any questions?
Yeah, the only question that we have not yet addressed that we got was particularly around when we were sharing our mystery shopping, our attribute rating stuff. People were asking, was that stated importance or was that derived importance? So I think that would be good. Let's talk briefly to the driver's analysis, particularly around how we got to those important features or those important drivers.
Yeah, so it is derived importance. It's an Ipsos-based nets analysis that was done to tell us which of these were most important. And I guess the The shorthand way of explaining this is we looked at the relationship between a shopper's stated intent to shop the retailer again against their satisfaction with these pickup attributes. And the attributes that rose to the top were the ones that had the strongest relationship, the strongest driver of a likelihood to shop again. In general, there was an alignment between what they said and what the derived importance was. The stated retailer's performance and what the derived importance was. But some of the things that rose to the top were not necessarily number one in stated importance. So I think, yeah, it's a good question, and it's important to call that one out.
Yeah. We addressed the communication piece. I know we talked a little bit about it, but do we want to talk about maybe the channels of communication? I know we've chatted about that before in terms of how many or what's the best channel. So do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell you my own personal bias is put it on the phone. If it's going to email, if it's going into the app, you don't necessarily see it. If it's a push notification to your phone, 99% of people and probably 100% who are doing e-commerce have a mobile phone. They're going to see it. Anything else, and there's a chance they don't. I fully expect, some of the mystery shoppers who reported not getting communications from the groceries or restaurants, they probably did. It was probably in the app, it was probably in an email, but they didn't see it until after the fact because it wasn't pushed.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting question because I know often I'll order through the app, but then I'll get a text message and my confirmation's actually in my email. And so there's kind of all this omni-channel ways that retailers are communicating with me specifically about the pickup. So I think to your point of a push notification or a text message, in some way making it easy for consumers to either click a link or in some way access that communication is good. Or to tell them, hey, we sent you an email with the instructions, right? Make it very clear where they can go, because you're probably right, Carlos. Some or maybe a majority of our mystery shoppers who said, I didn't get this, may have actually gotten it, and it popped up in their email and they don't check their email regularly or something. So it is I would just say, whatever logistically works for you in your company, in your business, make it as easy as possible for consumers to access that communication. Yeah.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
All right.
That's all the questions we had.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Ellen, I'll turn it back over to you to conclude.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Kaylee and Carlos. I certainly, some of that data definitely resonated with me. And I think our attendees probably found it very useful. So thank you to our attendees for joining us today. As mentioned, we will be sending an email with a direct link to today's recorded webinar that should probably come by tomorrow. Of course, in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to us directly. That now concludes today's webinar. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.